£5 billion. That is the amount the Football Association are set to receive from the start of the 2016-17 season, thanks to the most recent television rights deal announced with Sky and BT. A figure that has hit £8,000 since you started watching, a figure that will represent £10 million per match, £5 million per half, and £113,000 per minute. And no, that doesn't include injury time. The Premier League contributed £43.4 million of its television deal in 2011 to grassroots football, less than 5% of its £3.1 billion TV deal. I went to Sunderland Sports Complex to speak to former Sunderland footballer Gary Bennett to see if he thought a lack of major funding through the grassroots was a factor for the lack of success the national team has been having.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons when you look at, especially from grassroots football, academy football, money which is being invested. There's a lot of money being invested in academies, and it's about opportunities for these academy players to come through, homegrown players. Again, there's a lot of talk about too many foreign players in the game as well, but also you've got to look on, shall we say, the plus side as well. Obviously, what the foreign players have brought to the game, especially the Premier League, but also I think it's important that we do still give opportunities for our homegrown players as well. And I think looking at the new rules and regulations now that teams now or squads now have got to have a certain amount of homegrown players which are coming through the system.
When the Premier League first formed in 1992, Sky secured the rights to Premier League football for £190 million. From the start of the 2016-17 season, this figure will be set to stand at £5 billion. So what did Gary think when I asked him what he thought about the deal?
I think it's great, isn't it? Nah, seriously, again, when you're talking about finances and the money which is involved in football, and the amount of money which players are getting paid now and pointing the fingers. And again, you've got to remember that if you've been put in that position, you're not going to turn down the wages which is going to be offered to you. But, the game is so popular now that everybody, you can watch football 7 days a week. And people keep having to go at the amount of money which Sky are putting into football. But also, you've got to remember that everybody buys dishes. Now, if we don't buy the dishes, they don't have the money to put in. As simple as that.
With Gary feeling generally relaxed about the issue, I travelled to meet Ricky Butler, who runs his own online broadcasting channel dedicated to grassroots football. Having been involved in grassroots football himself for over 35 years, as a player, coach and manager, I was interested to find his take on the development of grassroots football.
The reason why I started it was because I just felt as though grassroots football in general was being ignored. The focus has always been on the higher levels of football, and there's a lot of good football being played at junior level and at grassroots level in general. And because I've been involved in that level of football myself as a player and things like that in the past, I just wanted to maybe try and give it a bit more publicity, really, and get it noticed a bit more.
But more publicity is something that will become even harder to do. Latest figures have shown grassroots football participation is falling. The number of over 16-year-olds playing football has gone down to about 1.9 million from over 2 million since 2005. While the elite level of football continues to thrive on soaring profits, councils have seen their budgets cut by more than 40% since 2010, making it increasingly difficult for them to properly maintain local pitches and invest in grassroots football. I asked Ricky who he felt was responsible for this problem.
Well, I think it's the FA's responsibility first and foremost. They run football in this country, and they should be looking at putting more investment into grassroots. It seems like it's generally ignored. All the people seem to be focused on is how strong the Premier League is, or league football in general. And I just feel as though without a strong football at grassroots level, football can't grow in this country. It's a far deeper problem than people maybe are aware of. I think that the fact is that there's half the amount of leagues now that there were a few years ago, and if nothing's done, it's going to get to a point where there won't be any leagues. It'll all be just people kicking about over the park, and that can't be good for football as a whole. I think it's definitely an issue. Obviously, the footballers of the future have to start at grassroots level. Whether they're in junior teams or whether they're further up the age groups, but that's where they start from. And I think a lot's been invested in better coaching now, and there are new facilities that have been built as well, which are all helping. But it's not just in those areas that need more funding, really. Fundamentally, you need more people to be playing football, more kids to be playing football competitively. And unless there's leagues and there's clubs there for them to play in, that's not going to happen. And then we're not going to develop the players. And what will happen is either we'll be looking at investing, rather developing players from elsewhere, or there just won't be anyone coming through.
Upon being warned about the structure of the grassroots game needing change, I travelled to Hartlepool's Victoria Park for a school footballing tournament to speak to a number of current coaches on whether or not they feel grassroots needs more funding pumped into it.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think that's where it's lacking at the moment. I think the council need to be on board with it as well, and put more money towards the grassroots football like you've just said there. I think the pitches have not been great. I think more 3G pitches need to be available for the kids coming through, and that's where you'll get better quality of football coming through as well. So I think more funding needs to be in the actual pitches itself.
Yes, I do think it does need more funding. Not so much in the sort of the boys area, but in particular with the girls. Where we are in Bolton at this moment in time, there's very little funding to actually help us sort of generate leagues and competitions with the girls side of it. Well, the first one, obviously, with the girls' side of it, and also we have a massive primary transition programme as well, and we do feel as though there's not enough money being passed on to the primary schools in order to develop, especially with the changes in the rules and stuff with the 7-a-side competition. There's a lot of primary school teachers in particular that are very sort of not up to date with all the different changes. So in terms of coaching, in terms of providing CPD, I think that's important in that sort of area.
With the FA pledging to contribute a total of £1 billion for activities outside the top tier of English football, only time will tell if these funds will reach the levels of grassroots that most need it. Arash, Bahrami, Flash Sports.